All right, we are now streaming on YouTube. And recording. All right, welcome everyone to the regular council meeting on September 8th, 2021. We do have a speaker joining us tonight, Jerry Petrin, as well as municipal staff and of course council. So we do have one change to the agenda, the removal of item 8.3, the request for road closure. The request that was made for is no longer going forward, so we can remove that from the agenda. Were there any other additions or changes? All right. So I'll look for an adoption. I'll look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Wood and seconded by Councillor Barlock. Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. Seeing none, thank you. Delegations, presentations, or petitions. We do have Mr. Petrin on the line this evening. Jerry, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. You have about 10 minutes if you need it, and then council can ask some questions. So the microphone is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Appreciate the invite to the meeting tonight. I don't know if you have the piece of paper with regarding what I'm going to be talking to you about, but if you don't, it's basically it's just regarding an easement for persons with disabilities to be able to travel on Mackenzie Road and that the other road that goes by the school with a mobile device that helps them get around easier. When they're not allowed on those two streets, it prevents them from having access, having easy access other than the same kind of privileged access others do that have no disabilities. I recently bought a cart for my son. It's much more stable. It's so easy for him to get in. He just moves his right leg to the right and he's sitting down already. It's a safe vehicle. It's comfortable. It's got a roof. It's got a windshield. And it's a much better mobile vehicle than that tiny little three-wheeled one that he has. And for the sake of him being disabled and him having easy access to some of the buildings in town on Main Street and the other road, I'm here asking council for an easement on persons with disabilities to be able to travel on those roads with other types of transportation. In this case, it's a golf cart that I have for my son. It's not a fast moving vehicle. It's electric. And I don't know. I think the top speed just by looking at it is about 15 kilometers an hour. It's really got a good braking system. It steers really well. It's sturdy, and he enjoys driving it as opposed to that other. He has another vehicle. He's got two. He's got an actual adult trike bicycle, which I put a electric front wheel on. I'm having all kinds of problems with it. I bought another electric front wheel. I'm having all kinds of problems with it. It's very unstable. And then the other red one is small. He can't carry much in it if he goes down to the store to buy groceries. I would like to see my son have as much esteem as possible, self-confidence, dignity, with the limited abilities that he has for his lifestyle, and have have him be privileged enough to be able to access some of these stores, and so that's why I'm here. And just on top, just to mention, I moved to Inuvik in 1971, And we drove our skidoos to school. There were skidoos up and down Main Street and every street in town. There were dog teams, there were everything. And I don't think there was any more accidents than there are now. You go to the small outside communities, Tuckett, Clavick, McPherson, Siggetchik, Guluhuktuk, Sax Harbor, doesn't matter where you go in the small communities. Those people are free. They drive where they want and how they want. And their population isn't that much smaller than Inuvik's. We have paved roads. I checked the Yellowknife bylaws for ATVs and skidoos, and that city is much bigger and more traffic. There's more traffic in the city. They have one street from 50th to 50A where they don't allow ATVs or skidoos. And other than that, the same bylaws apply. You can't go in playgrounds, you can't go in school zones, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's about all I have to say. I'm asking council to put an easement on persons with disabilities that they can get around easier and have equal access to the stores and give them independence. My son sits at home for the most part. When he gets out and goes for a drive, he has something to do. And that's all he basically does. Other than that, he sits in front of a computer. When he did drive, he was a very, very cautious driver when he had his license. And his license was taken away from him because he was found sleeping in his car. And he had the keys in his pocket because he knew he had too much to drink. So they took his license away. And he hasn't had the heart to get it again because everything seems to be an uphill battle for Jesse. So that's all basically that's what I'm asking council to give an easement for persons with disabilities. There are no restrictions for people walking on those streets, crossing those streets, bicycles, and vehicles, and so I just for the sake of it, especially like for persons with disabilities, I don't see the equal comparison with regards to the rules and regulations. So that's what that's what I'm here for, and I'm just that's basically all I pretty much have to say. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. We do appreciate that you're advocating, and I'm sure council will have a couple of questions for you if there are any at this time. Maybe not. All right, Deputy Mayor Bartlett, go ahead.
Great, thank you. I guess this question may be more for administration, just process-wise. What are our options with respect to how we can approach looking at getting some sort of easement here? Can we do it for a specific category of motorist, or is it something we'd have to do in a larger sense to just ease the whole bylaw and remove it? Or can we specifically target certain things within that for easement? Just more of a process question. I understand the rationale of why Mr. Petron is requesting this, so I'm just trying to see what kind of options we may have on the table of how we can approach this.
Go ahead.
So there are a few various options that can be done. Obviously, it would have to be a modification to our bylaw, our highway traffic bylaw, and maybe some other ATV bylaw and things like that to ensure the proper coverage. And it would have to be open to, do we define it as a person with a disabled sticker, or is it just for disabled people, or do we change it and just do away with the restrictions? There's different options that council can entertain on it. But it would have to be a change in the bylaw as to where, and then you just have to put either exemptions to the to the areas like on Mackenzie and Kingmania where you cannot have ATVs or snowmobiles. Maybe you put an exemption in there for a certain class, et cetera, et cetera.
If I can, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was one other thing that was on my my handout, and the other item, and I forgot to mention this. Sorry about that. Was the also the not every building in town has handicapped parking zones. But if my son, which he has right now, he's got his handicap permit emblem hanging from his cart, his golf cart. And the other thing that was on the agenda there on my page was that if he has that on his cart, that he should be able to park as close to the door as possible, because he's severely disabled, and that's what this whole disability thing is about, is to enable people with disabilities to be able to access buildings with as easy as possible.
Great, thank you for adding that too. I did have the opportunity to ask Chief Hammond about the parking areas that are currently in town. And so the one that I'm sure we're all aware of is the one in front of the bank. The way in which those things are looked after is if it's on the actual street, it's a town of Inuvik responsibility. So the bank, for example, is monitored by our peace officers. If it's within a town of Inuvik facility parking lot, same thing. But when it comes to private businesses, it's actually up to the business themselves to designate the area and to enforce it. So while, Jerry, I'm not saying yes or no either way, I'm just letting you know kind of where we're at right now. But I think that it might be an opportunity for council to encourage the community and small business to have those designated areas if they don't already. It's certainly something that one resident, or sorry, more than one resident will certainly benefit from that type of service. So, or opportunity, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, but I mean, totally understand why those spots are there and that it should be there for people to use. So,
yeah, I think if I may just respond to that, Natasha, I think like in, common sense, with respect to elders and old people and people with disabilities. I mean, instead of having to go through a whole rigmarole of changing this and changing that and putting this and putting that, because it's going to be a time consuming and a hassle for every business in town to put a marked wheelchair sign in front of the building. And I think everybody, for the most part, just understand with common sense that if they see a sticker, a handicap sticker on a vehicle outside, I mean, it's a small town, everybody knows everybody anyways. I think it's just suffice as enough to just, like, I'll just give you an example. Right now, Jesse, his favorite store, three stores is Stanton's, the newsstand, and Northmart, and basically he really doesn't go anywhere else. He parks right as close to the stairs as he can with the cart on on Mackenzie's, not on Mackenzie Road, but right in that corner there of the newsstand. And he says there's nobody really that usually parks there. I mean, I know there are, but that's his spot to park in, and he's right close to the stairs there. And I'm just saying that I think common sense is enough, in my opinion, to be known in this town and just with the general public, that there's Jesse. Okay, yeah, he's parking there. So be it. I don't think there needs to be a big, long, drawn out issue. Well, okay, well, where it has to be a really sophisticated change, if you know what I mean. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying for sure, but and then also understanding that as the town, we do have to follow process in some ways. And so if it's a bylaw change that's required to allow certain areas to be accessed, then, I mean, that's certainly the process we would follow. When it comes, like you say, if it's common sense that at individual businesses, then that makes sense as well. So I'm sure there's somewhere in the middle there that we might be able to find a way to work this out. I think my suggestion would be, if council is agreeable, that we ask administration to come back with some options of what this might look like. Whether that, I mean, because it will take a little bit of research too. Like you say, you've looked at what a Yellowknife does and those kinds of things. And it'll give council an opportunity to understand, what is the best way to help someone out who's looking for that access. So Deputy Mayor Bartlett, go ahead.
Sorry, and if I may just add to that too, just as part of this larger conversation, if we're going to look at reviewing this again, we may want to suggest administration also just put a question out to the community and say, do they see a potential need or desire to remove those restrictions altogether for everybody? Just again, it's just not a bad thing from time to time to look at those restrictions and say, is this what we still want? And if people come back in a vast majority and say, yeah, we still like to have those restrictions and those types of vehicles in here, notwithstanding perhaps access for disabled people in those areas. But I think it may be a good chance to gauge where the public's at with respect to that too at this point. If we're going to sort of look at that question already, are we going to do it as a more focused effort to do exemptions for a certain class of people or a certain class of vehicle, and or do we want to just look at removing it altogether as one of the options that could be looked at? But I think for that particular option, I think we want to get community feedback on that part.
Great suggestions. So is council agreeable to that? Then we'll ask administration to come back with kind of what some options look like. See some nodding heads. Yeah. Okay. So Jerry, thank you very much for your presentation. We feel for you. We feel for Jesse, and we're glad that you're here and raising your voice. That's the only way that we get to hear what's happening on the ground. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Good night. Have a good night.
Have a good evening. On to item number 5, which is public question period. SAO Hood, I'll just confirm. Have we received anything?
I have not received anything.
Okay, thank you. And on to the adoption of the minutes of the August 9th and 11th council meeting. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Loreen, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bartlett. Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, call to a vote. All in favor? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Miro. On to the action items list. In case you missed it, it did go out earlier today. There are some updates on the list. So are there any comments or questions about the list? Seeing none. All right, thank you. On to 8.1, the request for donation of space and equipment for bereavement. This was came to council through email, kind of on a short time, and we needed to have an answer, and then we're able to bring it now for official passing. So recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves an in-kind donation for the bereavement feast for the late Deputy Grand Chief Christine McLeod on August 18th, 2021, to include the following: donation of the arena pad at the Midnight Sun Complex, and donation of the following equipment as requested: portable speakers, microphone, tea, coffee urns, tents, pipe, and drape. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Loreen, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any questions or comments on the item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Much. Item 8.2, the cancellation of upcoming meetings. So with the federal election that was called, and then of course the municipal election that is upcoming, there are some meetings that were previously scheduled that need to be canceled. So recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby cancels the September 20th and October 25th Committee of the Whole meetings and the October 27th, 2021 regular council meeting. May I have a mover, please? By Deputy Mayor Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Miro.
Yes.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot to ask if there's any questions. Sorry. Was there any discussion that I missed? No. Okay, thanks. So item 8.3 was removed. I'm going to continue through the agenda as it was originally numbered. And then the numbers will just get fixed when it gets modified or when it gets edited. So 8.4 then is the as and when plumbing and mechanical tender award. Recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2021-2022 as and when required plumbing and mechanical tender contract to Rockies Plumbing and Heating Limited for the tendered price of $55,000. May I have a mover, please? By Deputy Mayor Barlock, seconded by Councillor Wood. Questions or comments on the tender? Or sorry, the awarding? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. On to 8.5, the 2021 as and when required electrical controls. Recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2021-2022 as and when required electrical and controls tender contract to Plum Crazy Mechanical Limited for the tendered price of $40,000. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Lorraine. Questions or comments on the award? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
So moved, thank you. 8.6. Recommendation that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2022 as and when required brush cutting tender contract to Northwind Industries for the tendered price of $40,300. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy
move
Mayor
that.
Barlock, seconded by Councillor Miro. Questions or comments on the Deputy Mayor Barlock?
Thanks. Just this one and a few others I see, we kind of ended up with a single bidder in the end. I just would like to know whether we're relatively in line with what our budget expectation was with these items where we only ended up with a single bid. So it'd be the same question for all the ones going forward that only have a single bidder as well.
SAO Hood, I'll have to ask you to.
Right now, I'll have to look and see. Sometimes as and when, many of them are on an as required basis, like for example, the electrical. So if we have a major electrical issue, it could blow off the budget and that kind of a thing. So it's very difficult to compare. Again, on as and when's as to, we budget going into, for example, this is for next year, so we will have these numbers as a basis to budget from.
Right. Yeah, I understand it's a bit on spec, but nothing's like egregiously like, oh my God, that's way more than we expected.
No, they've been in line with previous years.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wood. Oh, you've remuted yourself. You're still on mute.
There.
There we go.
I'm concerned that the number of contracts we have out, which consistently show people being disqualified, are we not making the requirements perfectly clear on these tenders? Or, what's the problem? It seems like a simple requirement, yet on just about every one, there's people disqualified. The same one in most cases.
So,
It's actually quite clear in the tender, almost on the front page, as to, and there is part of the tender is a section that says here are the required documents. It's on page 2 or page 3, I can't remember, as to a notice to the proponents that here are the required documents.
Okay.
I don't know how we can be much clearer.
No, I don't either. I just wanted to make sure we were making it clear. It's just a case, I think, of people not reading. Okay, thanks for that, Grant.
thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. All right, so we had Deputy Mayor Barlock move it, Councillor Miro second. We can bring to a vote. All in favor?
yes,
Thank you. On to item 8.7, recommendation that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2022 as and when required road fuel supply tender contract to Northwind Petroleum Limited for the tendered price of $15,300. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Lorraine. Questions or comments on the award? Seeing none, we can call to a vote. All in favor?
yes,
On to 8.8. Recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2022 as and when required road and ditch maintenance tender contract to Northwind Industries for the tendered price of $68,000. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Barlock and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lorraine. Questions or comments on the award? Seeing none, all in favor?
yes,
And on to item 8.9, recommendation that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2022 as and when required utility piling repair tender contract to Northwind Industries Limited for the tendered price of $26,250. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Miro, seconded by Deputy Mayor Barlock. Questions or comments on the tender? Seeing none. And all in favor?
Yes,
Thank you. And 8.10, recommendation that Inuvik Town Council hereby awards the 2022 as and when required sign, guardrail, and paving repair tender contract to Northwind Industries for the tendered price of $29,250. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Lorraine. Questions or comments on this tender? Seeing none, all in favor?
yes,
Thank you. Then on to our bylaws, 9.1, the highway traffic bylaw. This is third reading. These changes to the bylaw were to introduce the school zone, which I'm sure many of you have noticed the signs are up for. So recommendation here is that Inuvik Town Council hereby gives third and final reading to bylaw 2663 TR 21, the highway traffic bylaw. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Lorraine, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Barlock. Questions or comments on third reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
yes,
And on to item 9.2. This is amended to the zoning bylaw, which, as you can see a little bit in the background information, has to do with introducing special care facilities into the bylaw as a conditional use for some of the zones. And so I'd like to, we can do first reading, and then of course there's any questions, we'll address those. So recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby gives first reading to bylaw 2673 P&D 21, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 2583 P&D 15. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Barlock and then seconded by Councillor Wood. Questions or comments on the bylaw change?
have we had requests for this?
Yes. We had a request for a different sort of change, and it wasn't something that would work either for the bylaw or for the legislation, and actually having this way added creates an opportunity for a project that could potentially go forward.
So can you give us a hint as to what are we talking about? What sort of project?
Sure, I'll let SAO Hood handle that.
So we've been approached by an organization that is getting funding or have applying for funding to put in another facility for similar to transition house. And then they have some land already that they already own that they would like to put this facility on. And the first request that came in would be a zoning bylaw change from changing the zone. However, that would change our community plan. And as a result, then you have to go, there's a much longer process. It takes approximately 3 months for it, which is something that they would put potential funding in jeopardy. So through some discussions and looking at other municipalities and bylaws, and that some of this wording, for example, Yellowknife have a similar wording. It would allow for these types of facilities, but be on a conditional use, but just expand where this type of facility could be, because it's not just a single residence. And if you notice in the definition, we have a residence versus a facility. This is a larger type facility. Where they want to go, this is the easiest way and the most time effective way to make these changes, is then we make amendments to the bylaw to allow to add these conditional uses. Then they can make a development permit application and request it be approved by council, as it would be a conditional use for that zone where they want to put the facility.
Okay. And would I be correct in thinking this is providing service to vulnerable people in the community, to women and children?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we do hope to soon have a presentation for council from the project team. We just needed to make sure we could get this on the table first, so that they can then go back to their funder to kind of show how they might be able to get it off the ground here in town. So.
Well, there definitely is a need for service of this type.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Barlock, you had a question?
Yeah, just on the last page, in the change for the new section 7.18 sub 1A, just that the maximum number of residents shall be established by council and be based upon the nature of special. So I'm assuming this in practice that's basically going to be an application basis. A developer or a group will apply for a residence of a certain size. And this is basically just giving council control to say yay or nay to that applied for size. That not necessarily that we're going to sit here and determine, well, we want a building of this many maximum occupants, but they'll apply to the council. The council will have a chance to discuss that, decide if they think it's appropriate or perhaps too large or too small.
That is correct. That's why it's a conditional use, and that why council has to prove it, because council can put on any conditional use, they can put conditions on that approval to say, and this is one of the ones where we can say, because instead they may want to put a 10-story high rise someplace where it just isn't practical, kind of a thing. So council has that leeway to say, yes, we'll approve it, but here's some conditions that you have to meet before we'll approve it.
Right. Okay. Just making sure.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on first reading? All right, that we will call to a vote. So all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. So moved. All right, we can now move on to department head reports. Just grabbing my cheat sheet. So motion will be that Inuvik Town Council hereby adopts the following reports as department reports as presented. 10.1, the tour or the capital projects report. 10.2, the public services report. 10.3, the planning and development report. 10.4, the economic development and tourism report. 10.5, the community services report, and 10.6, the protective services report. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wood. And seconded. Did I see Councillor Lorraine's hand up there? All right, thank you. All right, so any discussion, first of all, on capital 10 point, or sorry, report 10.1, the capital projects report. Seeing no hands raised. As you can see, a lot of projects are moving along. All right, on to 10.2, the public services report. No, on to 10.3, the planning and development report. 10.4 Economic Development and Tourism Report. 10.5 the Community Services Report. 10.6 the Protective Services Report. Deputy Mayor Bartlett.
Just a quick question with respect to in the summary for protective municipal enforcement. It has 16 items related to taxis. I thought that maybe just for the permit renewals, but I see that it's actually 20 taxis that was successfully completed. So are those complaints against taxis that were actioned by municipal enforcement in this case for the 16 in the summary page?
Ask SAO Hood, I don't know them.
Unfortunately, I'll have to, Director Hammond's unable to be in the meeting, but so I'm not at a position to answer that as I was away in the month of August. But what we can do is send out to council an answer to your question.
Yeah, that'd be great because if it's a number of complaints against the taxis, that's a fairly significant number, I think. That's one every other day for the month. So I think it'd be good to know whether those are complaints or just simply administrative things like permit renewals.
Great, thank you. Anything further on the Protective Services Report? Great, with that, we do have all the reports on the table, so we'll call to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. We have our information items, the strategic priorities chart, which will be due for a small update now that the parks and or school zones have been completed. The Aurora Research Institute research projects, and then on to council concerns. Were there any concerns this evening? Councillor Wood.
Well, the first item is not really a concern. I just wanted to pass along. A number of people have approached me and mentioned how obliging Aaron is as a bylaw officer. I heard the comment that he's a pleasure to deal with, so I just wanted to pass that along and make sure Aaron is recognized. The second thing, could somebody get a hold of the owner of the lot where the Eskimo Inn was and get them to do something there? It looks like crap. Sorry, but it's not graded flat or anything else. It's just it's a hole. It makes the downtown look bad. The wire fence in front of it, and nothing going on. Maybe they could grade the lot, at least make it look halfway presentable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under council concerns? Seeing none. All right, we do not have in camera tonight, so I look for a motion to adjourn, please. Made by